Hi everyone. Um, my name is Tara Carroll. My pronouns are they, them, and I am going to be your host tonight for this amazing event for Disrupt Disability Arts Festival. So welcome everyone tonight. It's going to be an amazing show. So just to talk a bit about what the show will be tonight. So this is for International Women's Day. We present the work of some incredible artists who disrupt the status quo and explore these themes in their work. Featuring Chandrika, Narayanan-Mohan, Katie O'Leary, Mairéad Folan and Fatale. The performances will be followed by a panel discussion hosted by myself at the very end. There will also be a break at the end before that panel discussion as well. So I hope you enjoy your evening, and the first person is Mairéad. Thank you.
The doctor said that I'm going through a midlife crisis. Me? I can't even drive, so no flashy car for me. And I like my men old. All I asked her was, how much time do I have? I'm not dying. It's just that I'm turning 40 on my next birthday. And I want to know what my options are if I begin to hear my biological clock tick. Apparently, I'm the last one to hear it. Society has been hearing it since the first blood spot on my knickers. Each clock may look unique, but all beat to the same rhythm. Some say the church are the original clocksmiths. First comes love, second comes marriage, then comes baby in a baby carriage. Punished were the women who dared to skip a beat. Time passed, and the church's power weakened. A declaration was made.
Women have the power to tune their own clocks.
And what a load of... The establishment may have weakened, but the beat structure remains the same. Gone are the mother and baby homes and the Eighth Amendment, replaced by an invisible poison. It used to be, you're asking for sex if you use a tampon. That joke will make your blood toxic and you die. Now, you do realize that you're killing the world if you use a moon cup? Spare me. First comes love. Love. Society's greatest USP. But wait, it's only the love of a man. I know, the love of a woman or any other gender is equally as important, but really, it's a man that's a be-all and end-all. Don't believe me? Take a look around you. There's a lot of rules in how to get a man hidden in plain sight.
Rule number 1, way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Rule number 2, always dress up for him. Rule number 3, always prioritize his interests. Rule number 4, keep conversation light, fun, and playful. Rule number 5, wait 3 days before responding to a text. Rule number 6, he likes you if he treats you like crap. Rule number 7, treat him mean to keep him keen. Rule number 8, best not to tell him anything. Rule number 9, you must have sex on the 3rd date. Rule number 10, it's normal for only the man to orgasm.
Like many women before me, I followed those rules. Men that set the rules, but women's second emotion, not that it was ever put to a vote. Why do we women put pressure on ourselves to conform to the society's commands. Fairy tales say you have to kiss a frog before you meet your prince. Why? I stayed in a relationship with a frog for far too long. I only tolerated his bullshit to prove something. That I could stay in a relationship for a year. First comes love bombing. Second comes gaslighting. Then comes loss of self-worth. I came out of that relationship with the realization that my body was beating out a warning since that first date. That started the journey on becoming my own clocksmith. I didn't set out to be one, but I had to. First comes time. Second comes healing. Then comes self-worth reborn. The gardener. He sees her from afar, sheltered behind a self-built brick wall. He spies a chink between the bricks and worms his way inside. He replaces each brick with a glossy compliment. She blossoms as each compliment caresses her. Once the last brick is removed, he twists and turns each compliment until he is satisfied. He steps back and surveys his handiwork. Perfect bonsai tree to add to his collection.
Hello. Trying to perform after that's very difficult. I'm just going to put that out there right now. I'm going to do 3 poems for you. The first one is in Writing Home, which was published in 2019, and it contains poems from about 50 new Irish poets back then. And the poem I'm writing is about Dublin, because I feel like love letters are frankly wasted on people. I feel Mairéad proved that very nicely. And it also it's a little something because essentially it's about citizenship, which I technically have as of over 2 months ago. but I have no proof of it yet. So I couldn't vote in today's referendum, which was actually quite hard, and especially for the festival that's in it, that would have been really important. So I'll do a bittersweet migration poem I feel is perfect to start with. It's called You City, You Boyfriend. Seated awkwardly on a wooden box, we're on the last of my cigarettes, my 5th in 2 hours. He talks and talks and talks, and my replies are only punctuation for his next sentence. Across from a grey slab tower, the city smirks, raises an eyebrow as if to say, "You know I'm so much better than him." And you're right, because when we converse through the choke of soft air, we exhale each other's in whispers on a walk home where a smile has broken my face from the realization that yes, you are better than him. You are better than all of them because you push up through my thin soles and I feel every pebble when I'm treading across your tar-bumped skin and I feel embedded in you. You city, you boyfriend, you dusty hug. And when I tell you that you're beautiful, you blush across the canal. even though you already know that grey glamour suits you and you don't need to be told. I wear you like an arm across my shoulder, and when the wind pushes my hair back, I don't need an errant hand across a cafe table to push it aside. Like me, you play your cards close to your chest, but when we mourn, we crack with rain that pummels onto the pavement and across a million cheap umbrellas. So take me in and make me yours, because I've already let the pollen in my pores anoint me to an orchestra of rustling leaves and seagull song, and one day I shall take thee to be my lawful wedded home. And I shall wear a dress of summer fog and a ring of past lives, and you will smile and shrug. And in your humid indifference, I will vow to love you anyway, because I'm a hopeless romantic, and you're a city that keeps its own name. I didn't realize how well that would actually tie into the dating one. My second poem, the poem itself wasn't supposed to be funny, but it's funnier to make it funny. So the thing about dealing with immigration, I've been here for 13 years, most of my work was about immigration. In 2019, I got permission to live and work freely here, and my poetry changed a lot. So I actually ended up writing a lot more about the body, and just something that wasn't at the forefront of my mind a lot. So I went on a workshop. We were asked to write about like a body part, and I was going, my knees bother me an awful lot, and I feel that's a good one for today. So this is a poem about the knee, and it has one sound effect, and it's horrible. Anyone who does not want to hear cartilage cracking should not listen now. You're welcome. I was asked to perform at the Children's Books Ireland Awards, and I didn't know what to do. And I realized, you know what? Children love body horror. So I did that. Tell you what, the kids were into it, the parents not so much. Okay, but this is the knee. The knee is not a city of hollow cathedrals and patella gates, of stitched ligament and stretched tendon, and the empty agora where the blood once gathered, then evacuated. It is not the Velcro crunch of itself, as it bends and carries the ache and the strain, the burden of movement. It is not even the nudge into the crook of your bent leg, the puzzle piece of it, where it whispers to your tendons in the night. It is not a rock face, pockmarked, water-carved, allowing itself to be hollowed and lived in and river-rushed. Only in rest is it a mountain range, both busy and silent under a dark sky, allowing safe passage through a burdenless night. I forgot to do my gross sound effect in the middle, but I might have ruined it a little bit. And I have one last one, and it's a little bit longer. And again, I ended up writing more about the body. I know we're going to be asked about our writing process later, so I'm going to spoil that right now and say, I wrote this because I got acupuncture and started tripping balls. And it was really weird, and my entire child body came up through me, and I went home and I wrote this down, and technically this is now paid for that session, so that's great. But it was very strange, and again, when all the immigration stuff was gone, I was very much thinking about the body and memory and childhood more than I ever did. So this is called These Are My Bones. These are the bones I grew into, the ones that stretched and expanded, that were once small and fragile, wrapped in only the littlest meat. The smallest fingers, the little joints that didn't pop and click yet, the nail beds only just starting to fray. This is my neck that swiveled and swayed and took it all in, awake with movement, the whiplash of the world. These are my legs that I trusted, that held me well, that let me run, albeit slowly. But before they collapsed in on themselves, I did run, and I did dance, and I did pump the pedals of my small bike up the great slope of the cul-de-sac, and didn't I fear even then the steep descent downwards? These are the pieces of my skin that were scarred, the chicken pox scratch. I remember the bleed and the red and the fire. And I forget that skin is the same as the one I still wear. But these are not the same teeth. I remember the bend and the fall of them, how I can't erase the taste of blood and rice. It's too vivid, too iron sweet, the tooth I never found again. And this was the body that was hugged by my mother, held close to her in the shower while she hummed and bounced, another time less gently with the lice comb through my scalp. These knees have met pavement an infinite amount of times. The scar tissue now a solid patch of land. The way my skin won't let me forget anything, won't let me forget every small trip and stumble or slip into the dark. The first mole that appeared this summer with the hornet sting by the poolside and the oppressive American heat. Where the others had swimming pools and wasn't I invited, the only brown child, but I didn't notice at the time. And now my neck is a constellation of moles and freckles. When did they appear? I only just found one on the back of my ear, and who is to say that wasn't the first? Before the hornet summer, before the year of the kindergarten feather. And these are my bones, and the marrow in them is new. The meat is freshly grown, stem-celled. So much of me is new. So much of me wasn't awake then. So much of me was more awake then. But these are my bones, and with my own skeleton I hold onto myself. I reach into my skin. I stroke the places that are tear-stained like coffee rings on a table. I see every goodbye etched into my child heart, the constant partings, the constant farewells, the way I hollered, the way I spent my life missing someone. From the day I was born, I was missing someone. I have lived a life where I've never known what it's like not to miss someone, when I didn't have the words but knew what it was to be loved, and for that love to depart and return over and over. How I miss the whiteness of my own eyes, the feel of cheap lace and velour, days of Velcro, days I can't remember, years I can't remember, full of things I can't remember until I hear or see something and something in me snaps and crackles because my bones remember when my brain does not. My kind, loving brain, the way it puts things away for me. But I remember cling film and cardboard and markers and malls and Barbies and birthdays and the way American cake tastes, the way American carpet feels and the fullness of a cat. All the things my skin touched, the skin that is mostly new now. Only the scars can be trusted, only the bits of me that remain, the artifacts within me. What it is to miss my own bones, what it is to remember them, what it is to find them again. Thank you.
Second Sight, SIGHT/Site, SITE, a short film by Cathy O'Leary, 2013. Black and white photographs supersede one another. Cathy leads us through a busy city street in her manual wheelchair. On the left, cars parked, cars moving, cars pulling out and in. On the right, steel-shuttered shops, forbidding railings, crowded crossings, buggies and bikes, lampposts and bus stops. Colour video. We look out through Cathy's eyes. Grey, brooding clouds in a cold blue sky. Dead leaves line the gutter on our left. The sun throws her shadow in front of us. A bicycle passes by on the road, casts a long shadow on the tram tracks. We pick up speed, rolling down this city pavement. The wind blows wisps over our eyes. We are listing to the left, though Cathy steers us straight. We glimpse our knees as the pavement undulates. Faceless concrete on our right, gives way to tall stone walls. They whip past as we free-wheel by. We dip down a culvert, our knees brought closer to our face. High metal gates on our right bear graffiti scars. A road sign, a metal bollard, an entirely artificial landscape. Few pedestrians. Most pass by on the other side. A tram approaches close on our left. We slow as it passes, pulling in, turning round. We land in a country lane. Colour images of Cathy rolling ahead of us, sunshine on green hedgerows. The lane is not quite wide enough for 2 cars to pass. The tarmac bears no white or yellow lines. She pulls further ahead of us, past a lone telegraph pole. We are looking up at a bright sun in a blue sky. Threadbare clouds beyond a single telegraph wire. Tops of trees emerge green from the sun silhouette. Sparkles of sun wink through their leaves. Our head lowers, showing the road as we slow. The wild green hedge tops on our right catch slanting sunlight. We glance to left, then to right, and back to our left as we coast along. We drift to the right of the road. The sun sends red flashes through our eyes. Our eye is caught by a circle of white plastic discarded on the road, unexpected and out of place. Our gaze glances off this and back to the lush green life to either side. We pause in our journey, turning slowly on the spot. We look up at tree tops, revolving around blue sky and soft cloud. The sun brightens our view to whiteness. Blindly, we drift toward the source of light, letting it fill our eyes as we glide to a halt. Our field of vision is bleached at the center, bound by shadowy trees and patches of sky. In this stillness, we just notice the slow progress of clouds. We are now focused fully on the clouds. They hold still, straight above us. The branches floating by on either side are the only sign of motion. We look up through sunlit leaves on ivy-clad trees. The green is lightly touched with tinges of autumn as we roll on under a still blue sky. We glide gracefully through still water. Scattered autumn leaves speckle the surface. Our effortless course occasionally rocks us from side to side. The water is a dark mirror, perfectly reflecting the trees and the sky in deeper greens and blues. We are so close to the water's surface that it is hard to say if we are swimming, rowing, or magically drifting. Only the passage of floating leaves tells us that we are moving at all. A cast-off branch approaching us, discarded debris scraping past us, a broken limb lost by some storm-tossed tree. We slowly turn our gaze to the tree-lined right bank. Ripples radiate sideways from our wake. We push forward again through yielding water, exulting in a little easy speed. Skeleton trees stand abandoned on the left bank, victims of harsh weather, now entirely exhausted. Little ripples sometimes skip ahead of our effortless acceleration. We skim the glassy water as easily as the soft, reflected clouds. Second Sight/Sight was directed and produced by Cathy O'Leary. Developed during the process of the Locus.eu Residency 2013. Music by Wolfmaster G, Zolly and Monkey. Audio described by Isolde Opalachon Carmody. Copyright. A big thank you to all that have supported this film, funded by the Leitrim Arts Office.
Well, come here to me, hey, and I'll tell you what it's like being a small old man in a big old world. I'm 2 feet tall, no more, no less. This here is me home. I was born here and I'll die here. But I don't stay here all my life. It hasn't been an easy life, I'll tell you that much. On the hurling team in school, I was so small they couldn't tell me apart from the slipper. Well, that's what they said after they pelted me across the pitch. Many's a time I'd fight off the neighbour's cat who mistook me for a mouse to snack on. It hasn't been easy, but I knew no matter what the kids at school said to me or did to me, and no matter how many times the cat pounced on me, I had my love back home. Mary was her name, and she was small like me. I first saw her on the mantelpiece, decked out in blue robes, skin porcelain white. She was the only one who never laughed at me. She wasn't much of a talker, but she really knew how to listen. People tried to tell me she was lifeless and cold, not a real girlfriend, but they just didn't understand the connection we had. Everything was pure bliss until one wretched day my beautiful Mary fell off the mantelpiece and shattered into a million pieces in front of my very eyes. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put her back together again. When she broke, my heart broke along with her. Distraught in my grief, I didn't know what to do with myself. Sure, love like mine's Mary's was once in a lifetime. And without her, there was nothing to keep me going. That very night, under the glow of the moon, I tossed my belongings into a handkerchief, threw it over my shoulder, telling not a soul, and off I strolled into the night. And if you will allow it, I'd love to sing you a song about that very journey. Do sing along if you know it yourself.
I've been a wild rover for many's the year, and and I've spent all me money on whiskey and beer. But now I'm returning with gold in great store, and I never will play the wild rover no more, and it's no nay, never. No nay, never, no more will I play the wild rover. No, never, no more. I went into an alehouse I used to frequent, and I told the landlady me money was spent. I asked her for credit, she answered me nay. Such a custom as yours I can have every day, and it's no nay, never. No nay, never, no more will I play the wild rover. No, never, no more. I then took from me pocket 10 sovereigns bright, and the landlady's eyes opened wide with delight. She says, I have whiskies and the wines of the best, and the words that you told me were only in jest, and it's no, nay, never. No, nay, never, no more will I play the wild rover. No, never, no more. I'll go home to my parents, confess what I've done, and I'll ask them to pardon their prodigal son. And when they caress me as oft times before, I never will play the wild rover no more, and it's no, nay, never. No, nay, never, no more will I play the wild rover. No, never, no more, and it's no, nay, never. No, nay, never, no more will I play the wild rover. No, never, no more.
And that, my friends, is how, after more years than I care to mention, I came back to this very house, which I swore blind I'd never step foot in again. Well, sure, that's my story, as a small old man in a big old world. Thanks for listening, and you mind yourself now.
Oh, um, so thank you for coming back for the discussion. First, I want to say thank you everyone for your wonderful performances, because I think maybe a lot of us felt today that it was really important for us to be all together after today's vote, and it has been a really tough week. And weeks leading up to today has been very tough for a lot of people. So it was really amazing to have everyone together here today for some disabled joy, which is so much in our community. It means a lot to us. So I just wanted to highlight that, and thank you to the festival, and thank you for Anya for bringing all these artists together. So we're going to get a little discussion going about today's event. So the name of the event that I did not mention earlier, because I didn't know and I blanked, so I'm sorry about that. Good neurodivergency. So the name of the event is Disgender, Disability and Gender Identity. And these, of course, are intrinsically linked, disability, gender, and gender identity. So, and obviously for today, for International Women's Day, obviously, even for myself, even though I guess it's an important day, but as a non-binary person, it means so much more than that as well. So I want to also highlight that. So we'll get the little questions going now. So thank you to the artists for being here, and I'm going to throw out. So I have 2 questions. So we're going to get one question going. So how does your experience of gender interact or influence your work? So we'll start with you, Chandrika.
I sat in the wrong place.
I know, you're like, you're just saying that you're in my, in my fire.
I guess I was trying to think about how to answer this earlier, and I guess I kind of mentioned it before, is that immigration has been my biggest problem. So I didn't really address gender loads in any of my writing because that was always the thing that actually dictated my life. But strangely enough, because it's a referendum day, I was remembering the poems that I wrote regarding gender were very much around the last referendums, because that is when it became very forefront of my mind, and a lot about bodily autonomy and grief. And I remember I was trying to think of the last big poem I wrote about anything to do with womanhood, and it was about Savita and all that kind of rallying cries that we did for the referendum and how that art played its own part in it. So just strangely timed, I suppose. That's, I guess, the last time it played a really big part. But I guess now one of the things that I do as writer in residence for the Institute of Physics last year, and one of the things I was focusing on was underrepresentation within scientific fields. And there, I suppose, gender played a really big part because there were so many working in the arts. There's a lot of women and women adjacent people in science. Still not so much. It's pretty painful, and a lot of that poetry centered around other people's stories of gender imbalance, and so that started to play a real role. And it felt a lot more revolutionary to dig into those stories in that sector. So yeah, I guess it depends.
And how was that received in that sector?
Pretty well, and yeah, because I interviewed mostly women, and just the stories were appalling. First of all, it's so very behind, but it was really good to platform them. Like, one of the people I interviewed was Linda Hughes, who does the weather, a meteorologist, and for her it was really important that little girls get to see her on TV, and whenever she's asked a question, like, she says, "I'm a meteorologist," so she likes to put that out there as part of those things that in terms of representation with gender across science. So I get to play a very tiny part in writing poems about that and communicating that to other audiences. So yeah, I guess it depends on the worlds I end up dipping into more than anything coming from me internally, I suppose.
I guess even when you said in terms of turning from immigration was the main source of your poems, and then it changed within the body, and your second poem with the link with your mother. I guess that in itself is like, you know, based within gender as well, and that relationship that maybe you had with your mother. I think maybe that was linked in as well.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm attempting to write a collection of essays at the moment based on sort of houses, and I actually ended up writing that the first house was my mother's body and writing about that. So it's kind of it's coming in through memory and through family. Again, it's always a little bit external. It's like someone else's body or someone else's femininity, I suppose, because I don't relate to it that much. Yeah. Like, you know, I go for she, her, meh. Like, I'm sure, I'll take it. It'll do, you know. Like, but a lot of the time, it's like it's other people's roles around me, whether it's family or different stories that I'm working with. That's, I feel, when it clicks, and I want to like tell those stories.
Amazing, thank you. And I'm going to pass on the question to Kathy now.
I have him.
So for yourself, how does your experience of gender influence your work?
I suppose my relationship with the land, my relationship with the environment, has always been, you know, my work has always been influenced by the body and the landscape. I've lived rurally most of my life, so I feel very connected to the land, and the land is feminine, so I became even more so becoming a wheelchair user since 2007. How I access that land as a female, and how I interpret those kind of visuals.
Okay,
you know?
Yeah, of course. And in terms of the work that you've done today, that obviously you made, the video piece was made a few years ago. How did that feel doing between the land that obviously around near where you live to the land that was in Dublin, and how does that feel in terms of like maybe the land maybe out towards you could maybe feel more like land and womanly, or the more
Very
connection
much.
to nature, and then versus to Dublin?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I suppose having lived in the UK as well, I always felt that it was such a concrete jungle in comparison. You know, because it was such a concrete jungle over there, I felt it had become more masculine in a sense. Whereas for me, being in nature was as feminine as I could feel.
Yeah, and how you can connect that to that.
Yeah. So it's always been an influence. And then of course, like the portals are the going through the different spaces. You know, I attached my chair to a sub board, and I went down 5k down the river bonnet, and with the GoPro at the front. And
I wasn't sure if that was the boat or what was that.
Yeah. So that was me on the water. So it was me in all of those environments, and placing myself as a wheelchair user within those environments was challenging.
Yeah.
I have to say it was challenging to get on the water, but now I want to do more again, and I want to make new work. Really, ultimately, I today, even though I have performed it before, it feels different every time because there's different people in the audience, there's a different interaction, the spaces are different, and so there's always a different interpretation with every performance I do, and even in terms of movement, I never do the same thing.
Yeah, of course, it's ever changing, the pieces, because obviously we had seen it in 2022 with us in Palace, so it was very different to what we experienced in that gallery space. In terms of this Black Cube space, is very different, but the energy that you brought, I think, was the same in the sense as well. So yeah, thank you. And for yourself, Mairéad, how does your experience of gender interact or influence your work?
Well, so for those that don't know me, I'm the artistic director of No Ropes Theatre Company. And our ethos is basically challenge the boundaries that society puts on us. So I basically give voice to the kind of unspoken communities in my work. So I guess a lot of that is female. It's not intentional, but happens to, like, a lot of our productions are female led, and just giving voice to unheard, and hopefully get the message across to audiences.
Yeah. I actually wrote down something you said, and I just wanted to read it out because I think it links really well to today. Men set the rules and women second the motion.
Yeah.
It was just something I instantly wrote down, and I just wanted to say it out loud to you. But that's what caught my attention. Such just in what I was thinking about the past couple of weeks with the faux. It quite felt like that with some feminist voices that were happening the last few weeks. So I think that's why I instantly wrote it down.
Ironically, it was my partner Brian that helped me with that line, because I was like, I knew what I wanted to say, but I couldn't think of like how to say it in a snappy way. And he's like I think I had the men that set the rules, and I'm like, But what's next? How should I say about women? And then he said, like, oh, women's second motion. I was like, oh, yeah. So, you know, men can be good sometimes. but no, it is true, though. I just recently finished reading a book called I Feel So Pretty by Holly Bourne. You guys should totally read it. And it's set in a dystopia future, and where like the doctrine tells how women should be, and like they have to be so pretty, otherwise they're invisible. But like the reason, and and it's the same rules that is in that book, and that is in the script. Even though I read the script, I wrote the script before I even read the book. So it's interesting that even like those rules you see in like the rom-coms, you see in like the magazines, How to Get a Man, How to Get a Man in 30 Days or whatever, like well, especially when it's coming to Valentine's. And then but then there's kind of like, well, if you follow this rule, but the next rule kind of goes against it, what are you supposed to be? What are you supposed to do? So I think you just make up your own rules. Be comfortable. Fake what everyone else says. Just be true to yourself.
Thank you, Mairéad. Yeah, because when you talk about the rules and with the book as well, I think it's like, I think everyone related to the rules that you had said through your script, and then obviously they're kind of like universal rules or something that we all know, and how you're able to connect that with the book. And for yourself, then, Fatale, how does your experience of gender interact or influence your work, like today and work you've done in the past, maybe?
Well, I do drag, and drag is about gender. Like, trans people invented drag. It's an expression of gender in all different ways. And I think even if my work directly isn't about gender, like I'm going to make a performance about gender, it's definitely a snapshot, like a snapshot into how I'm feeling about my gender at that time. Like when I first started doing drag, every number I did was just about how miserable but like really pretty it was to be a woman. And, I was like, that's so normal. Like, all women hate being women, but like, ooh, frilly pearls and stuff, do you know what I mean? And then the more comfortable I kind of got in my own gender, the more my drag started to evolve into like not being just so like miserable, like miserably glamorous. And I started to change doing like, like boy drag things, and even if I was doing more feminine drag, to like actually make it like campy and like silly and fun, you know what I mean? So even though I was, making a number where I just sit in a chair and play really big spoons, like it's also about, like I am a tiny little guy now, do you know what I mean? Like I'm not that glamorous, sad lady anymore. Like I'm just this tiny little guy in this big world, like trying to make my way.
Yeah, I know we had good chats about that the other night as well. And when you were talking about it, I instantly thought of a book, one of my favourite books that also was like a game changer in understanding my own gender. It's called Females by Andrea Longchu. And she writes this amazing thesis that everyone is female and everyone hates it. And it's this like theory she does, but in a playful way, backs it up in the most insane, crazy, but actually is like so convincing. So when you talk about the moment of realizing like you are doing this hyper femme for drag, and it's like I hate, like, don't want this. I hate this. Most people do like maybe hate this in some parts.
Yeah, there's like this assumption where I'm like, oh, I feel this way, and it's obviously it's hard to be a woman, and every woman knows that, but that's different to hating being a woman.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
It was a big game changer of a realization for me, and drag definitely helped me do that, because once you have like a big enough catalogue of work, you can look back at it over the years and see like, oh, I was really going through something with this, where, oh, I did a number where I was a housewife washing my dishes, crying about how just I hated everything. Oh, I did a number about how Judy Garland's life was ruined because she's a woman, and like it's just everything was like, I had to sit myself down and go, I think I'm depressing my audiences, and like, why is that? But like it forced me to like take a look at how I felt about my own gender, and I think I'm just having a lot more fun with it now. And I don't hate doing feminine drag anymore, but when I do it, it's a lot more campy and it's a lot more fun, and I'm feeling like I can be comedic about it. Like the less like constraint and like turmoil I feel about my own gender, the more I can like play with it and actually have fun with it.
Yeah, there's a new awareness around it that means that like you're playing with it in a different way. I think we were talking about the other night, I literally was just asked to go through my practice of the last 5 years. And I've also had that realization of my work in the last few years, like, oh God, how did I notice these things before, and how your work does play out what's happened internally, even if you don't really force that or consciously do it. So I'm going to start asking the second question, because I think we only have like 5 minutes left or so, but how does your lived experience as a disabled person intersect with maybe what you said before and the way you develop your work? So I go back to you.
I had so much time to prepare. Actually, interesting. So I had my diagnosis for autism and ADHD just about, I think maybe 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, and I felt that was a big thing in a few different ways, because before then I didn't know I was disabled, even though my knees didn't work and I had all these other things. They were just, oh, I don't know, it hurts, and I can't do stuff and it's annoying. But once I had to like actually look at that, once you get that diagnosis, or you find out that you're part of that, there's a whole pathway down it, and I had to think about disability at all as something, as a label that goes on to me. And yeah, so that affected a few different things, both in terms of me writing about the body and going, well, I actually have ways to think through this now, and it's not just, oh, I'm weak and can't keep up. I actually have never been able-bodied, I just didn't know that. But then in terms of neurodivergence, that's kind of blown everything up. It's like, before I used to wonder, I was like, oh yeah, why do people make their otherness like their whole personality? And then I knew I was autistic. And I was like, guess what? This is my personality now, bitches. So that was like my thing, turns out. I just didn't know it yet. And now that's like really coming through a lot of my work. And like those science poems, I interviewed different scientists and had different takes on things. One of them was about robotics, and I did an erasure poem where you kind of pick words or bits of it and create a little poem. And I didn't mean to end up making a poem about like robotics and just autistic people, because I had little similarities about their ability to adapt, working with different environments. And I was like, oh, actually, I can see patterns in this. And then I wrote another one about a robot, and I go, I don't think this is a coincidence. I relate more to the robots than the people I'm interviewing. But yeah, it's coming up through my work an awful lot. And then I only quit my job 2 years ago. So figuring out how to be an artist in terms of work and like routine, not a clue. I'm figuring that all out now in terms of how to even have a discipline, have a practice, do stuff and make art, and create your own structures from scratch. Like, so that's all really playing into everything.
Yeah, of course, which is so challenging, and I think isn't talked about enough maybe within the art scene, of like being a freelancer and creating your own structures, but also as a disabled person having to like fit yourself into these already structures that are already in place, and them structures not fitting with the structure that maybe actually would really suit you and your mind and body, and to how to manage that is a minefield, but it takes time, and it you adapt and it becomes a bit more flexible. But and for yourself, Kathy?
Interestingly, I've been looking at robotics as well in a different way, in terms of like, how can I get myself across the field? So it definitely informs my work a lot more these days. Similarly, I had an early childhood spinal injury, but my family, we didn't really treat me as disabled, so I didn't grow up with that concept really, we just got on with it. Whereas these days I'm actually being tested for ADHD next week, as it happens.
Join the party.
But I kind of knew that I was different in a way, and I suppose having physical disability, even though it wasn't recognised as such, it has limited me in certain ways, but also it's pushed me to places that I wouldn't have gone if I wasn't a wheelchair user, for example.
Yeah.
So and of course socially, working with other people with disabilities, I've been so blessed to work with the amazing community that we have, and I'm really advocate for making sure that we all get looked after better, and that we get funded better, and that we get more supported in our work. And so I would do a lot of advocacy, inform by my disability as well.
Yeah, that intersects with your own work as
Yeah,
well. Yeah,
yeah.
of course. Thank you. And for yourself, Mairéad?
In terms of like production wise, disability doesn't really come into play in terms of for no ropes. It is like it's not like it just happens that there's other scripts that I want to look at, but that's not to say that I did a show about the walker called Luke 2 years ago, and then I brought a disabled performer from London to perform in Galway Theatre Festival. But in saying that, as a director, I find that my disability helps me problem solve more, because as a disabled person, you always have to find quick answers. Like, okay, you can go down this route. What's the best way to go there? Like, do you cross the road, go up the hill? Basically, you have to do U-turns to get to the place. But I have a physical disability, but I was in a way kind of acting like someone with neurodivergence, in that I was masking my disability, because I thought if I masked my disability, I get hired. Didn't happen. It really didn't happen. So COVID happened, and the rest of the arts community started talking about how they wanted to make a safer working environment for themselves. And I was like, well, that's great, but there's no working environment for the likes of me. So that made me speak up more about my needs as a disabled artist. And the more I spoke, the more opportunities I had. And I think if I didn't speak up, there's no way I definitely wouldn't be at this festival. So yeah, speak up on what you need, even whoever you are.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. And of course that a lot of people can't speak up for themselves and as well, and we need to also bring other people along with us when we are speaking up. And when we talk about advocacy work, we're talking about also including so many more people to be at the table with us when we do that type of work. So thank you that what you both do as well in terms of advocacy. And for yourself then, Fatale?
So drag, kind of across the board, is generally quite physically uncomfortable, especially when I'm doing more feminine drag. And it was happening a lot more and more, where because of pain flares and the things that I'd have to do in my numbers, where I was having to just cancel gigs. It happened one times too many, where I was like, I can't keep doing this. So I was like, I need to change what my numbers are so that they're not going to be so physically demanding for me. And I think in a similar way to yourself, that caused me to problem solve. I knew I was never going to be one of those RuPaul's Drag Race queens. Let's do a split. Let's do a death drop. I would literally drop dead. It would be awful. And so I was like, I'm never going to be that. So I need to have fun with what I can do in a way that's not going to absolutely wreck my body, but is still going to be interesting. So I found an excuse to sit in a chair for 6 minutes, just a really comfy chair, and that was class, or sometimes it'll be I'm doing a number and I'm like, I really just don't want to wear a heel, so I'm going to make this whole number about my sparkly Crocs, and that's going to be funny and it's going to be fine. I think, it's to, instead of just putting up with the discomfort and the pain, which I did for honestly most of the time of me doing drag, in the last maybe year, I've been like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just find ways to make myself more physically comfortable, and that will only make it more interesting, I think.
Yeah, of course, it's opening up it in different ways, because I think, to second what many people say, because we're so forced to adapt all the time, we are the disabled community are amazing problem solvers. Even for myself, I was able to figure out things that I never thought I could before, because of community and the strength of community of giving me more tools as well of how to navigate the arts world, especially, and just navigate life. So, and how that influences your work and the choices you make to how that we shouldn't have to put our bodies to certain limits to achieve things within our work. We should be able to do it in a way that's right for us and our body and doesn't cause harm. And nights like tonight and festivals like this, that means that we're able to do that in maybe a safer environment as well, and a more supported environment. So we'll just finish up there then, and thank you so much to the amazing performance artists for tonight. It's been so incredible to talk to you. And thank you everyone for coming tonight. And Alan's going to come up and have a little chat with you now too.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you all.